Hello everyone and welcome back to Beyond the Apex. So today's episode is not very different to the last episode, but you know, we're going to be talking about Monza, so the Italian Grand Prix.
What a race!
What a race! Why do we say that every time we change this? Let's talk about Red Bull first. I mean, first of all, I will say before we actually forget, even though it is in capitals.
I have just added that.
Yeah, 10 wins in a row for Max.
Unbelievable record. And there's been a lot of people in the F1 paddock who've been downplaying it.
Yes.
And I really don't think you can downplay what Max Verstappen is doing right now.
No.
He is the most consistent we've ever seen a driver.
Yeah.
He is just, week in, week out. Even if something goes wrong for him, like he doesn't get pole position, he drops back, he does this, he just performs.
Yeah.
And you really cannot downplay how well Max is doing right now. And 10 wins in a row really does just represent that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so obviously, like you said, they don't always have to do well, sort of thing. As in, there can be issues, there can be grid penalties or whatever, but he'll still make it up there.
He will still do well. And obviously, look, we saw in Spa, 5-place grid penalty, still won by margin.
Yeah.
Australia, I think, is a great example. Both Mercedes got past him at the start, but he's now mature enough to realise that he can get past him in the race.
Yes.
He doesn't risk anything.
No.
And it's every single race, and obviously last week as well, 14 seconds behind Checo, still won by a massive margin. So
absolutely, I think he has matured in that sense as well, and we saw that this weekend. Obviously, they didn't dominate in qualifying.
No, absolutely not.
But obviously, it was clear that he was going to overtake him.
Yes,
and he was going to take the win. I mean, it was just when.
It was really just when. I mean, that car was. I think Adrian Newey came out before the race and said, "We set this car up for the race."
Yeah.
And even though it was actually quite difficult in the race because the Ferraris were quick in a straight.
Oh yeah, they definitely were. Yeah.
And Sainz got his elbows out.
Oh my
a
gosh!
lot.
Some of that was very interesting. I mean,
it was exciting racing.
It was exciting racing, but interesting, and
But look, it was another dominant race from him.
Yeah.
But I will say that Matt, we talk about the 10 in a row, and the car can have issues, stuff like that. The last 2 laps of that race, Max was 6 seconds to Checo because of a car issue.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for Yuki breaking down at the start of that, there would have been another 2 laps added to the race. He could have lost that win.
Yeah.
So there's stuff like that can happen, but he still ekes the performance out of that car and still just performs.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Yeah, and obviously a 1-2 with Checo, first time for 1-2 for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, great result for the team.
Definitely what they wanted out of the weekend.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But we'll move on to Ferrari, talking about Carlos Sainz. I mean, oh my gosh, the battle.
It was the best racing we've seen this season.
They would go, the first corner in Monza, which is literally you can't go too wide in it, really. They would go too wide in it. And I was sat there on the edge of my seat thinking, oh my gosh, I mean, like you just said, he had his elbows out.
He had his elbows out and his arms out.
And his arms out and his legs out at times.
It was a little bit dubious at times. I think there was a lot of drivers complaining about him moving in the braking zone. I know in the press conference, I was trying to translate the Spanish because Checo and Sainz were talking in Spanish. But Checo was not happy with Sainz moving under braking. But he did get a black and white penalty, he stopped, and it was fantastic defending it, and he deserved that.
He did, absolutely. It was a great race from him in that, and for the points as well.
100%.
For the team.
Ferrari definitely looked second fastest this race.
Yeah.
And it's good signs because they really needed to be quick this weekend, especially in Monza with the Tifosi, which are always incredible. Yeah. It was great to see them up there.
Oh, 100%. So we'll move on to Mercedes now. I mean, qualifying wasn't there.
It really wasn't there. And look, Lewis I think he was 10th in qualifying, I believe.
Yeah.
And George was about P5 around there. So it wasn't the best qualifying at all in a track where they should have been quite quick. I mean, Canada, Mercedes were quick, and they should have been quick here as well. Obviously they weren't. But it was a good recovery. Yeah,
100%. And there's not really much else to say that.
No, apart from the fact that Hamilton on the Williams still struggled.
Yeah.
And obviously the Williams overtook the Mercedes as well. So it wasn't a good weekend, I would say, from them. Someone broken in? It wasn't the weekend they were hoping for, but from qualifying, it was a good result.
It was a good result, absolutely. It was a good recovery. So we'll obviously go on to Alpine now. Very poor race.
Oh my god, the worst race I think we've seen for a team
100%.
for the whole season.
Yeah.
It was horrific. They were the slowest car.
Yeah.
And there was just no quality or race pace.
No, and I find this so funny. I forgot about this actually.
Yeah.
Didn't actually realise that Ocon had retired.
No, I saw in the memes after that Ocon retired, and I was like, when did that
happen?
Apparently it was about 10 laps before the end.
Commentators didn't even notice either,
No.
so it was obviously not the best weekend.
No.
That much respect.
But it's good to see from McLaren, obviously, because
Good
for McLaren. Even though we are monstrously ahead of them now, but it was good to see.
Yeah. Talking about McLaren then.
Yeah, so they were off the points, but they were still firmly off the pace, but still firmly in the points, which is good to see, because at the start of the season I would have given my right arm for that.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, and obviously Oscar led the race.
Oh my gosh.
Oscar Piastri is performing so well as a rookie right now, and obviously led the race. And yeah, it was great to see.
100%. And actually, I don't know if I'm remembering this right, but Oscar and Lando had a little thing in turn 1 too.
They did. My heart may have dropped then. But yeah, Oscar was coming. Lando was able to pit first, which I didn't actually understand because it wasn't really for position. But Lando pitted first. He nearly did the undercut. Oscar was slamming it into turn 1, and they did make contact, but no damage. So but apparently Andrea Stella had a very big word with them after the race because they were putting themselves over the team.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a little bit touchy.
But it's fine. No.
So I reckon take a break now and then go on to Alfa Romeo.
Yeah. Okay, so Alfa Romeo.
Good race weekend for once.
Yeah, it was. Certainly better than what we just. Well.
Yeah, in Zandvoort. Yeah. It was a much better weekend. Apparently, I saw in an interview after Bottas was actually looking as an expectation for the points after quali, even though he qualified P16. Obviously, that car still has zero pace in quali.
Yeah.
But Bottas got the point, and it was nice to see for once.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a good weekend for them, but obviously Joe outperformed by Bottas.
Which we were not saying at the start of the season.
No, we weren't. We were saying, if anything, Bottas wasn't performing to where he should be, because he was driving for Mercedes, he's got the experience, but obviously...
He's now coming to his own again.
I think so.
Old Bottas is coming back, and look, he has got a multi-year contract with that team.
Yeah.
It looked at the start of the season like it was going to get bought out,
yeah.
But now it looks like he has firmly went back into that first driver for that. But my part, and I am so happy to say, is that it was a fantastic weekend for Teo. He had a fantastic sprint race, super pace, and obviously he got on pole, extra 2 points, which we never see Teo on pole. The last pole we got was in Bahrain at the start of the season, and yeah, he just performed so well. And then in the feature race, started off from pole, lost P1, which I was fine with as long as he just consolidated the points, and then in the back of the picture I just see Vesti being spun out, and I was like, at first I was like, is he okay? Obviously because he was going into cars, but as soon as I knew he was okay, I jumped with joy. Teo got a podium in the end, I think, or a P4, which was great to see. 25 points ahead going into the final race weekend in Abu Dhabi in 2 months' time. He can't throw it away, right? He can't. I cannot. We have something in our family called the Casey curse. I cannot curse Teo here. He has to. Surely he can't lose a 25-point lead. But Vesti could pull an absolute blinder out of the bag at Abu Dhabi. But very, very exciting, and I cannot wait. I said just before we filmed this, last podcast, I'm either going to be wearing my Teo Share cap, which is probably the only one that's ever been sold, or I'm going to be in absolute tears. So
stay tuned.
Stay tuned for that, because it's been a roller coaster with Teo this year. I've been through it all. If he can actually pull this championship through, I'll be a very happy man.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Okay, move on to Aston Martin now. I mean, not on the pace that we've been saying recently in previous podcasts. Yeah, and I mean, look, they've lost P3 in the constructors now, which has to be a tough one for them. Obviously, definitely. Alonso said that this was one of the drives that will be overlooked this season for him.
He said he just got the maximum out of the car. But yeah, he stayed in the points, which was good to see as well. I think he got P8 in the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Stroll was absolutely nowhere once again. I think he qualified 20th.
Yeah, I mean, but we're never going to see a change there, unfortunately.
We're not.
But like you said rightly, so it is going to cost them.
It's going to cost them. They are going to, if they had a driver like Yuki Tsunoda, obviously they've got Honda coming in 2026 as their engine manufacturer. Yeah. They want a Japanese driver, so it's either going to be probably a Yuma Iwasa or a Yuki Tsunoda. Yeah. So if they had a Tsunoda in that team, if they had an Alex Albon, for instance, in that team, they would be getting probably 30% more points than they were, and they would be battling for P2. Yeah. I think they're going to be battling for P4 if they stop performing, because obviously McLaren's coming up now. They've got quality pace, they've got race pace normally on normal race weekends. And McLaren are going to be vying for that P4, and they need to be careful. It
is a shame, because obviously we've seen them go, I don't know, jump start and go really far in terms of, you know, fighting for like we said, P2 and stuff, but obviously fighting with Red Bull at times as well.
Absolutely.
Obviously now it's like, we've got, like you said, McLaren, they've got the two drivers who are very on the pace.
Oh yes, very
and very consistent, consistent in ways.
Yeah.
Stroll is going to cost them dearly in terms of the pace of the car they've got.
Absolutely. But moving on to Haas,
I mean,
look, it was just a normal race weekend. However, I will say that Nico had one hell of a start, which is nice to see a positive from Haas.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And obviously, I'd love to see Haas back up again, possibly a little bit of bias, but I'd love to see them back up there. But Nico really did. It wasn't at all. It's just the tyre degradation on that car at the moment, and the drivers they're performing like hell, but because of the tyre deg, they just fall back. And we saw that with Nico. He got up into the points at the start, I think, from like P15. But again, tyre deg just slams them, and then they just end up falling back and back and back.
Yeah, it's a shame we see that quite frequently, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, it's every race weekend at the moment, and I mean, they have to have a freak race like an Australia where there's like 2 red flags, and where the actual driver skill can come through. But it's just a shame to see. Yeah. But moving on to AlphaTauri.
I mean, Lawson again.
What a drive! What a drive from Lawson. I will say, one of the overtakes, I think it was on Magnussen actually, he sent it from so far back, and he must just have so much confidence in that car now, and it's great to see him having confidence.
Oh yeah.
Because some drivers would get into that seat and just be conservative, just to try and not crash. He went, Nick's Vries, at the end of that he was just trying to keep his seat as much as he could. But Lawson is taking this opportunity by the reins and absolutely proving himself. And he stayed. He was ahead of Yuki. He, obviously behind in quality. Obviously Yuki had the issue. But he was on pace with Yuki this weekend, and that was insane to see.
Yeah, and I mean we've said it in I was going to say yesterday's podcast. It is actually like a minute ago's podcast. But obviously we've got Daniel Ricciardo in that seat technically. But then we just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, that they got rid of Nick de Vries because he wasn't performing. Daniel Ricciardo, arguably, has he performed? I don't know. Now Lawson's in the seat and he's performing to a next level.
Absolutely.
What are we going to see?
And look, at the moment, it's looking like Ricciardo's going to be back for Qatar, so he's going to miss Singapore, which is this weekend for us. But he's going to miss Singapore. Back in for Qatar, but look, if Lawson has another spectacular drive at Singapore,
it's going to be
he will be vying for that 2024 seat. But now I can speak present terms. Apparently, Ricciardo is going to be in that seat next year, so it's between Yuki and Lawson for that seat, which I really don't understand. Obviously, that team's becoming Hugo Boss Balls Racing, I believe, is the current title rumoured. And they're trying to become a separate team from Red Bull, which just is never going to happen. But apparently in Singapore they're bringing a lot of Red Bull parts, so the car could be quick. It'll be great if Lawson can get the points. That will staple his name.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
But it's looking up for Lawson, and he's been in the sideline for so long. I'm glad that when he's been given the opportunity, he's performing. And
he's taken it. He's taken it with a lot of confidence, definitely. Okay, so we'll move on to Williams now. I mean, again, fantastic. It's just so good to see them. I mean, Alex, P7.
What a result.
I'm taken aback by how Alex has performed in the last 2 races. I mean, we've talked about. It's so great to see.
It's so great to see. And look, I think questionably, obviously he was in Red Bull, he didn't perform. I think Alex performs much better at a midfield team where he can overperform the car.
Oh, 100%.
And look, he's proving it at the moment. Yeah. Stellar defending. I've literally got stellar defending from Lando for the whole race.
Yes.
Which I'm a Lando diehard fan, and I can say what a result from Alex.
Yeah.
That Williams, he is extracting every ounce of performance.
Yeah. It's so good.
And also, just a note on James Vowles, because he is doing spectacularly as team principal. I listened to his full podcast on Beyond the Grid, which we might have taken the name from. He is so articulate in the way he's doing things, and he is setting Williams up for the long game.
Yeah.
And his strategy of just kind of sending Alex out there, undercutting everyone, and then just hoping his tyres last is just brilliant to watch, because we get brilliant performances like this from Alex.
We do. I mean, talking about Logan as well, it's just still not there.
It's still not there. This was his chance to be in the points. The Williams was the quickest in the straights by 6-7 kilometres per hour the whole weekend.
Yeah.
And this was his chance to be in the points, and he failed to do so. So I think unless there's a shock result, he will end the season on low points. And Alex is up there at like 20 points. Mm-hmm. So it's really just solidifying the fact that does Logan deserve to be there? Yeah, and I really don't. I would side on the no, which is crazy to see, because we were so excited for Logan.
Yeah,
He obviously had one season in F2, straight into the F1 seat, and he just hasn't really performed.
But it's just a shame when you think about it as well. We think about Nick de Vries and what happened to him. Awful, but again, he wasn't performing, so they had to take him out. Logan, I mean, it's probably going to be a similar thing. I mean, Williams want a good driver. They want to be in the points.
They need a good driver, because at the moment they could be vying for P6 in the constructors. If they had two drivers performing week in, week out, they could be getting 40-50 points, which is where they could be for P6. So they're missing out on 10 million or so, which is huge. And Logan is going to be given a whole season. Obviously, Williams would never swap him out.
No.
And if he is not on pace by the end of the season, if he's not within 3/10 of Alex by the end of the season, there is going to be questions on this team.
100%, and there's no doubt about that. Right, so that's pretty much it. So we'll end off this podcast, and we hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you for Singapore.
Yes.